saxophoning. Firstly, apologies for my face. It's not a great face today. I'm literally about to go for a run after this, so we've got bare face. If that offends you, please look away now. So let me tell you a little bit about what I'm playing on today, and then we'll get started. So I am on my alto today, which is a Selma Series 2. Delightful little thing that it is, although could do with some TLC. Needs a service. Ideally, you should get your sax serviced once a year. You do not want to see what just came out of there. We've got a Rosso Studio Jazz mouthpiece on here and Vanderin Optimum ligature. So, this tutorial is actually a real all-rounder, so good for beginners or, you know, advanced players as well. It's all about long notes, which are easily avoided, but are actually really, really important, very important. I guess it's just one of those things. It's like warming up before exercise. You know, ideally you should do it every time you exercise. It does make a difference in the long run, and to how far you can go and how well you perform. I think it's because it's quite similar to singing in a way. It feels like similar to singing for me. I do a little bit of singing. And if you were to sing something really meaningful, but break the sentence halfway through in order to take a breath, you would completely ruin its meaning. So it's a similar sort of thing. Ideally, you want to take as few breaths as possible so that you don't break up your phrases. So here's an example. So one little breath in there at an appropriate point. If you are struggling to hold your notes for long periods of time, you might end up with a phrase that sounds a little bit like, which just sounds a bit naff, really. It's not even necessarily just to do with making it as smooth as possible. It's just phrasing. So if you do something really staccato, you still want to breathe as little as possible. You know, still, I don't know if I took a breath and then maybe like one. You still don't want to be breathing often, as little as possible. You make time and you do your long notes every single time you practice, just part of a routine. And then it helps you to practice as well psychologically. You know, you've got your steps that you get through. So when you're like, you're having an off day, you don't want to practice, you just go, okay, do you know what? Step 1, I'm going to do my long notes. Step 2, I'm going to work on my scales. And if that's beginner, you might just have, you know, 1, 2, 3 scales and a couple of arpeggios, whatever. And then by the time you're advanced, you're doing, you know, some nasty alternate scale in all keys. But the point being, you've got your steps, and your long notes are your first step. So how you can approach them and make yourself do them. I mean, I'm very goal driven, so for me, I think it was good at the beginning. My teacher taught me to try and hold it for as long as possible, and that's not just an indefinite amount of time. I timed myself on a stopwatch like a loser. And then I made a little note of how far I got each week, and it's actually really rewarding because you can see yourself getting better, and I think anything where you can see yourself getting better is going to be, you know, is going to encourage you to do it more. So keep a log if you're a beginner and see, or even if you're advanced, and just see if you can push it that little bit further each time you go to log it, so whatever that is, once a week. A couple of tips when you do that long note. First of all, it's not just kind of an indefinite long note that you're just kind of holding. You know, make sure that you give it some purpose and send it out the room. So when I do my long notes, I think of, I've got something visual there. I think of sort of a plume of sound. It's almost like, what are those things called? You know, the sock things on the motorway that they tell you how windy it is. If anyone knows where that is, put what that's called. It must have it's got a term. It's got a name. Anyway, if anyone knows what that is, write it in the comments box for me. But yeah, like, not that you would ever have done this, but if you put a sock like on the end of a hairdryer, you know when your socks are damp and you need to wear them and you just hairdryer them? No, just me. okay. Anyway, you can imagine, right? It's pretty funny. But that's the image I've got in my head. Sock hairdryer, obviously, going out the window. But this idea of a thick, fat sound that is travelling somewhere and down the street, you know, I'm not just kind of holding a note. I am sending a note with purpose. When I go to play that note, I'm making sure that I take the breath through my mouth and slowly. It's clean air. I've breathed out first. And then I breathe in slowly as though my body is a pyramid and my tummy is the base. I'm trying to fill the wider area of the pyramid. So I'm taking air to the tummy before I blow. When you take that air, make sure you don't sort of gasp it. Take it slowly. If you gasp, it tends to go... You see my shoulders coming up and it's all hum around my chest. So make sure you really are taking the air slowly. And then hold your long note, whatever note you choose. Obviously, notes with less fingers means the tube is a bit shorter. Oh, sticky G sharp, standard. So yeah, maybe go for an A or a B, or if you're challenging yourself, go for something like a low D or one of the bottom notes. That's one technique. You could also vary a little bit and challenge yourself. You know, if let's say you're a beginner and you can hold for, I don't know, 20 seconds, why don't you try and then do something with that 20 seconds? So changing the volume. Obviously, if you're playing quietly, you use less air. If you're pumping out air, it goes louder, standard. You've probably worked that out. So what if you varied that and control the air a little bit more? So let's say you start loud and come away to quiet. I'll actually find it's quite tricky. What you'll probably find is that the sound wants to cut out towards the end. So we'll just do an example. So to avoid that kind of at the end there, which you might find if you're a beginner that you're struggling with, just make sure that it's a little bit it's a bit of a juxtaposition. Like what you want to do is to just kind of flop and then go it's almost like a sigh, like you're giving in at the end. And actually you want to do the opposite. You want to be pushing harder with the diaphragm and keeping really strong with the embouchure as well as you fade away. So if you're finding that kind of cutting in and out, just think diaphragm, 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 diaphragm. What if you do the opposite of that? So you start quiet and you go up to loud. Now that's a bit trickier because you're pushing more air down just as you're starting to run out of it. So let's say, again, your maximum time you can hold for is whatever I said before, 20 seconds. Maybe it's like 3 minutes, but whatever it is, let's say it's 20 seconds. And you gradually get louder towards 20. So you've put your stopwatch on so that you've got a goal point, and when it gets to about halfway, you should be about halfway towards your loudest point. So if you're advanced and you're doing it for literally like 2 minutes or something, make sure that you are very, very gradually getting louder. So I'm just going to short example. And careful when you're doing that you don't end up flattening at the same time like a... So what you might find is that as you want to pump more air through, you let your embouchure drop in order to let more air through. So that's going to make it go flat. So try and keep your position, your U, not your E, and not your R. So that U shape there, keep that really, really still. Keep the sides nice and strong. And you can vary it more. What if you do quiet to loud to quiet? That's actually quite tricky because you've used up loads of air in the middle section and you've still got halfway to go, and you've got to do this fade really gradually, supporting from the diaphragm so it doesn't cut out. You'll notice actually I probably look a bit weird. So the other thing I've got the the sock and the hairdryer, obviously it's in my head. But I'm also really focusing my eye line as well, and I think it's to do with sort of a balance thing. I do a lot of yoga, and when you're balancing, which you do a lot in yoga, you have to focus on one point. If you're like looking around the room and are distracted, then you will find that you will topple on your face. So ideally, don't topple on your face whilst playing saxophone. Lesson learned, done. Ideally, sort of focus on one point, and really all your attention is going on that long note, nothing else. It just helps me to balance and keep those muscles really, really, really still. So last one is the opposite. What if you go loud to quiet to loud? So you've used up loads of air at the beginning, you've done the control to come down, and then in that last push, up to loud again. Again, this is just a really short example. If you're an advanced player, you do this for a long period of time. Ways that you can make yourself do your long notes. As I say, it should just be part of your practice however many times a week, preferably every day if you can. So if you found that useful, give it a little thumbs up, or if you'd like me to talk about something else in particular, maybe write a comment in the description box. If you know what the sock thing is called on the motorway, I'd love to know, so do a little comment. If you're interested in what I'm up to outside of these lessons and performing in and around London and across the world, then check out my Twitter, and you'll get updates on what I'm doing performing-wise. And don't forget to subscribe to my playlist, please.